I ask you to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States. To the republic of one nation, under God, indivisible. Is this a gift? I'm not sure what to say. Sorry, let me just bite my tongue. Excuse me. Good evening. Thank you very much for coming. May I please ask for a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Is there a second? Is there any objection to switching Dr. Rizzo Saunders to first up and then doing the business portion of the meeting after that by any council member? If there's not, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Before we get into the presentation, I first want to certainly welcome Dr. Kimberly Rizzo Saunders for joining us tonight, the superintendent of the Kennett Consolidated School District. But I'd also like to congratulate Juan Tifola, Amy Regal, and Hilda Matos on their victory in the election. Congratulations. We certainly are thrilled to have you. Juan, did you want to say just a brief word? Well said, and the brevity is much appreciated, Juan. Thank you. I'd also like to congratulate Ellie on her reelection for the remainder of her term. Congratulations, Ellie. And for our soon-to-be fifth-term mayor, Matt Fettig. Congratulations, Matt. And also, while I don't see anyone here, I do want to pay tribute and thank those who put their hat in, certainly especially Kathleen for putting her head out there and trying to get back in spite of the administrative problems. It may have been much different in terms of these two seats had she been on the Democratic side. And James Miller, everyone loves James from State Street Pizza. Troy Thompson, our new regular at the meeting, Charla Watson, who ran a very ambitious writing campaign, and certainly our beloved Mayor Leon Spencer. Leon is a beautiful person and certainly a great guy and a good person to have around Kennett. So please thank them as well for volunteering and trying to get into the race. With that, let me introduce Dr. Kimberly Rizzo Saunders, the newish, has it been a year? Superintendent and local Kennetteer as well. Welcome. Thanks for coming tonight.
Just trying to, will it show on the side too? Okay. So I pace when I'm nervous. So I might be moving around a lot. So
Rizzo, there's no reason to be nervous. You're among friends.
thank you. I think I was born nervous. I am here this evening to talk a little bit about the strategic plan for the Kennett Consolidated School District. And just to share with you what we'll be focusing on over the next 5 years and answer any questions you might have on that. So, just to give you an idea of the process, we actually started this. This was a year-long process, started when I walked in the door. During that process, I had 70 one-to-one interviews. Some of you were among those interviews. We had 102 focus groups, participants, not focus groups, 102 focus group participants. We had 3,000, or I reviewed 3,000 pages of reports and documents and everything I can learn about the area and the students and the district's history. And then we had over 1,000 survey participants so that we could take all that information and start to move through it and better understand. An important piece of that is 25% of the participants were representative of our Spanish-speaking community. We did have interpreters at every single event that we hosted. So that's something that we're going to talk a little bit more about in a little while. During that, we created a steering committee. That steering committee had 6 subcommittees, and they developed what you're going to see this evening. Staff then took that and made it, put all that education jargon into it. And we moved forward with what is in front of you. So you do all have the strategic plan in front of you. It is about 45 pages long. And I'm just going to kind of tell you a little bit about the structure of that. On that steering committee were 50 staff members, 4 board members, and 16 community members. So once we went through that, we used a SWOT analysis, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. And really, we came up with these 6 areas of curriculum and instruction. That's always a good area for your school. Student supports, facilities, finance, and operations, technology, communication, and human resources. And when we talk human resources, we are not just talking about teaching staff. We're talking about our custodial staff. We're talking about our maintenance staff. We're talking about PCAs, which are personal care assistants. And all of that staffing is becoming much more difficult over the last 2 or 3 years in our district. So 5 priorities were identified. And for each priority, there's up to about 6 goals. And for each goal, there's 6 to 8 action steps, which really is like 120 action steps for each area. But to make it digestible for the public, we made sure that we just kind of highlighted the top ones. So I don't think any of this will surprise you as far as what those priorities are. The very first priority, which is in the center of this beautiful visual that I did not create, just for the record, is a future-ready student experience. In order to do that, we'll need high-quality teaching and learning staff. We will need impactful and empowered teachers. We need to make sure that we're engaging our community in a way maybe the community hasn't been engaged before. Really wanting to engage them in some decision making and some more bilateral communication. And we need to have a 21st century learning environment for both safety reasons, but also for how students are going to walk out into the world. They are not going into a workplace that we have seen before. So each priority, and this is just a sample of how it's broken down, has the goals. Each of those goals has action steps. When you think about the action steps, I want you to think about those action steps are actually inputs into the system. What we're doing, how we're doing it, why, and to a certain extent, why we're doing it. But they're all inputs. Those in and of themselves really lead to what we want, and that's the output. And output here is about higher quality teaching programs, higher quality learning for our students, nicer facilities, cleaner facilities, safer facilities. So when you look over that, that's how it is designed as far as the plan is concerned. And then you can see here, what do we mean by a future-ready student? What are our inputs for that? Well, the first thing that we need to make sure that we're doing is that we are providing a guaranteed, what's referred to as a guaranteed viable curriculum. Really, that means is it doesn't matter if you have Ms. Jones in first grade or you have Mr. Rizzo in first grade, you are going to know and be able to do the same thing when you leave that classroom. You're going to have had the same opportunities. We also want to make sure that when you're providing those opportunities, that we have teachers who are able to make decisions in a data-driven way so that they can look at a student, whether that be based on what they have done within the classroom, what they have been assessed on, what they had written for their homework the night before, and make decisions about what that student needs. And so that they can make decisions about the students in front of them, not necessarily the ideal student we would all love to have. Now, in doing that, once you have that data decision making ability, one of the things that you're able to do is to create what's called MTSS. So there's some educationese for you, right? That just means multi-tiered systems of support. What it means is that really, if we're doing our job, 85% of our students are going to have no problem in getting through the material, understanding the material, and learning the material. About 15% of them are going to need some level of intervention. And probably 5% of that 15 are going to need intensive intervention. So when you think of a multi-tiered system of support, really you're talking about what you do in tier 1, that guaranteed viable curriculum, how you intervene when students don't learn that guaranteed viable curriculum, and when students struggle with that guaranteed viable curriculum, what are you really going to do for that student? Is it more time? Is it more do they need more time? Do they need better resources? What are we going to do to help those students? That is outside, just so you know, I'm sure this is ringing in the back of everyone's head. That is outside the special ed process, but it informs the process as you get to it. So if we haven't intervened, how will we know where a student is going to be before they enter that process? So we also, and really important to us, want to make sure we have done what we're referring to as an opportunity audit. We want to know what opportunities our students have, what opportunities they need, what opportunities do they access from us. When they do access it, what are those outcomes? When they don't access it, why? What are the barriers to that access? And are those barriers within our control? Sometimes they are, and sometimes they're not. And finally, as far as a future ready student, one of the things that we'll be doing is really evaluating the district's readiness to create a dual immersion program for English and Spanish. Now, this is a 5-year plan, just so you know. So if you don't hear about dual immersion for a little while, that is because we haven't gotten to it yet. Priority 2, high quality teaching and learning. We want to make sure our teachers have the tools that they need to do a great job, that they are at their instructional best. We want to make sure we have clear targeted opportunities for students and teachers to be able to acquire skills that are necessary, not just today, but the skills they can adapt in 5 and 10 years. And finally, we want to ensure high quality and consistent teaching practices across our grades from K to 12. Our third priority is really this impactful and empowered educator. We want to use strategic recruitment practices so we have a competitive market for our teachers. We want it very quickly over the next 5 years to have Kennett be the place that people want to come to teach, because they know that they're going to be treated fairly, that they're going to be paid fairly, and that they are going to be considered among the most respected teachers and staff in the Chester County area. Then we have 4, which is to create that informed and engaged, supported community. We have made multiple changes to our communication platform. If anyone wants to get our community newsletter, I'm happy to share that. Give me your email address. I'll add you to the list. We send out a community newsletter every other week. On the 15th of every month, we send out, kind of, for lack of a better way to put it, a points of pride. We call it the Kennett 15. And what that tells the community is what's going really well. We have started to adopt different survey methods. So a survey goes out tomorrow to ask parents specifically, but also students and staff, what do you want your school calendar, not school day, we're not talking about the school day yet, but what do you want the school calendar to look like? Do you really want to start before Labor Day? Are we going to continue to have this April vacation that kind of just rolls around, or it's not even an April vacation necessarily? What do you want your year for your children and for your work to look like? So those are the kinds of things that we're working to develop. We definitely have a great person if anyone is interested in communicating with her. Her name is Lisa Palmieri, and she does a fantastic job with our websites. If you get a chance to see our website, they are new and updated. And we are working on the social media aspect, not school district strengths in any way, shape, or form. Social media is just not that. And then finally, we have priority 5, which is really that 21st century learning environment. I was so fortunate to come here and have 2 buildings already underway. And we were very fortunate to get Rock Peak grants to help us with those costs. And those buildings, if you have not had the chance to see them yet, are stunning. They are beautiful. They are definitely 21st century learning environments. In order to have a safe and secure building, we need to make sure that we are meeting regularly. I know Bill and I are meeting tomorrow. We want to make sure that the other piece of that is that our students' data and our data are safe and secure. We just recently changed our, for lack of a better way to put it, the system that you have, I'm going to forget the name. How embarrassing is this? That catches things as they come in. What is that called? Yeah, that's what it's called. That's what the stuff that comes in is called. But the system that stops it, I can't remember. Dan is probably watching. Firewall. Thank you. And making sure that we have ongoing safety training for our staff. We want to make sure that all of our buildings are able to be accessed not only by our students and our staff, but also by our community members. At the end of the day, the buildings belong to our communities, and they should be shared with the communities to the greatest extent that we can. And finally, we want to make sure that we're sustaining those learning environments and updating them. So pretty soon, you'll hear what I have to say, not today, but about the cafeteria at the high school. Anyone ever been in it? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I call it the eating dungeon. Yes. So we're going to be talking about that space. Mark and I have already started talking about that space. We are very, very fortunate in that we do have a solid capital fund that we could make updates to the building without having to add to our tax rate. So if you got to graduation, if you have not been to a Kennett graduation, they are stunning. And I would invite you all. We get a lot of people who just pull up a lawn chair and hang out. And that was amazing for me to see. And I am going to stop there and see if you have questions.
Thank you very much, Kimberly. Mr. Mayor, Council?
I have 2 Kennett graduates, 2018 and 2022, and so from kindergarten all the way through was a great experience, and loved graduation. Loved the marching band. You know, the dungeon of the lunchroom.
Yeah. You love the dungeon of the lunchroom?
Well, it's fun there.
Yes, we've had lots of fun.
I have a quick question. One of the questions that we get asked when we're looking at new development, when there's going to be development, whether it's apartment conversions or the development of the MVF site, the question always is, how's it going to impact the school district? How do you plan, or how do you look around? How do you forecast when we're looking at development in the borough? How are you planning based on that? And do you feel like you have a good plan in place as you hear about those projects?
We hear about those projects. We are very fortunate that we hear. That doesn't mean that it doesn't impact us. We are in good shape with our new buildings, not perfect shape. And just, eventually over the next, I would say 7 to 8 years, depending on what happens with the developments that are coming, we may have to consider redistricting. We are already kind of reassigning some new developments over to Bancroft versus Greenwood. Greenwood is pretty full. I think the good news in that there's not a lot of room to build anything else in Greenwood, the Greenwood catchment area. And New Garden is New Garden and is doing pretty well. There is kind of a very large long-term development over there, but we should be okay. We do have enough room, although this is not a recommendation at this time, to move our kindergarten students and still have enough room to the new buildings. And one of the things that I would talk about when that, if and when that happens, is really starting to have the conversation about what preschool kinds of offerings we really need to have here. That, because I don't know if you know, but the preschools that we presently have are very, very full. They often don't have space in them. And with some of the things that we have seen happen over the last year, we know that Head Start in those kinds of programs are at risk.
Another question is, where do you see enrollment trends? Up, down, flat?
Unless something changes drastically, they're pretty flat over the next five years. The further out you go, the less confidence interval you have. But really down a little, up a little, down a little, up a little. So to not this fall, but the fall before, we had 305 we anticipated some of them, but we had a larger than normal kindergarten class. So that will kind of work through our system. A lot of that will depend, again, on what happens with some of these developments. If they bring in the children that they anticipate, then we'll stay pretty flat. If they don't bring those children in, we'll go down slightly. But we're not anticipating a huge influx of students in the near future. And not because people aren't coming here. I think that is something that it should be really clear to both everybody in this room, but everyone at home as well. If you look at a cohort survival, which is how we do the demographics, one of the things that we're finding out is that the children are just not being born. It's not that they're not coming here to Kennett or that they're not going to, Kennett Consolidated School District. They're simply not being born. So the children don't exist the way they used to. Absolutely.
Approximately, do you know approximately how many children are in the school system right now?
Just a little over 3,700, just a little under 3,800 any given day.
Thanks. It sounds like you and the chief, and I know there's a school officer very involved. Is there anything the borough can be doing to benefit the school system or needs that you have that the borough can help with, or vice versa?
So I think that, and I know that Kyle and I have exchanged emails a couple of different times on different things. I think it depends on the situation. We've had a lot going on the past year. Right now, we're looking, with immediacy. It's around the end, or maybe the non-payment of SNAP. Just so you're aware, I don't know how aware people are, 47.5% of our students are food insecure. I don't think people recognize that 47.5. 41% of them participate in our free and reduced lunch program. We presently do what we call a backpack program, or 68 hours of hunger. So they leave on Friday with 68 hours worth of food. There's 68 hours between the last meal they have at school and the first meal that they come in to on Monday. So we are working all those programs. We will be putting out, if nothing changes between now and Friday, we will be putting out a newsletter to the entire community about food scarcity. And I would ask that you just kind of promote our materials and just say, hey, here's something from the school. So you could get on the newsletter list and push that out to people and that's the best way. And you could come to Coatesville on Saturday and cheer on our hopefully state champion field hockey team. Outside of that, I think it's the constant communication between Kyle and I, the chief and I, and making sure that we have open communication and people know they can pick up the phone and call myself or any member of the DO and have a conversation about where we are. We all need to be, including the borough, Kennett, and New Garden, need to be planning together because as we keep seeing things change with finances and budgets, the more we plan together, the better off all of our communities are.
Do you have any construction plans for your buildings in the borough, Mary D. Lang and the high school?
Not right now, but I do really want to address that cafeteria and the library and some of the core facilities at the high school. Not, we're not going to spend $40 million, not even anything close to that, but it's just some kind of revamping. The outside of the building is such an historical icon. The inside of the building shouldn't be. So.
Does the school district use the library in any way? And if so, how?
Our library, the Kennett, I love the Kennett Library. And yes, so we do use the library next week. All of our third graders will go to, might not be next week. And then upcoming weeks, all of our third graders go to the library. They all get a library card. We encourage our students to use the library. I meet regularly with Chris Manna. And we also use the library, just to be completely transparent, to meet because they have nicer facilities.
Last question for me. Some of us dinosaurs have read about this thing called AI. Is that having a big impact yet on the school?
I guess it depends on what you mean by big impact. We are certainly very cognizant of the fact that AI is so available to our students. Our job, of course, is to teach them to use it responsibly and properly. I think what we're going to find, particularly in schools, is that AI will quickly become a tool that students can harness versus something that they can use to like plagiarize their Play-Doh paper.
Anyone in the audience have a question? Lexi, do you mind Mike to be the mic person? Okay, thanks.
Carrie Dickman. I am a retired educator. Special ed supervisor was my last position. So
There's a special place in heaven for you, right?
So I know what makes a great place to work is more than salary. The culture, there's a lot that goes into it. But if your goal is to make teacher pay more competitive, I guess my question is, where do you see that money coming from? And are you forecasting through your process a tax increase?
So that is a great question and one that I anticipated. So I think that one of the things that we have to realize is that right now, Kennett Consolidated School District teachers are the third lowest paid teachers in Chester County. Many of our teachers cannot afford to live within our district. So one of the things that we're paying attention to and forecasting out is what is Act 1 going to be over the next 4, 5, 6 years, and how can we manage our budget so that when that hits, we are not crashing through the Act 1. Obviously, referendums are not successful in Pennsylvania. They haven't been successful in Pennsylvania. So we will definitely be working within the Act 1. I can't look at you and transparently tell you your taxes won't go up because I believe that they will. However, what we can do is try to mitigate how quickly and how much that they do.
Can I ask one other question? So this question is, I started my education career at Unionville, went to Octorara, then Downingtown. We have 2 district offices sitting about a mile apart.
Oh.
The cost to run each district office is in tens of millions of dollars. That's a lot of teacher salary. Is there any talk about merging the 2 districts?
No, there hasn't been any talk. Well, I've been here, but I've only been here 15 months. I think that you're overestimating how much it costs. No, I don't know how much it costs to run their district office. I can tell you that our district office runs pretty lean. I'm coming from a different place. I don't know if people know that or not, that I am not a Pennsylvania native. I am from New Hampshire. Certainly, it is unusual from where I come to have 2 district offices so close together. On the other hand, students were more spread out as well. So for instance, my district was 250 square miles. That's a third of Chester County. So I also had 11 schools. So I don't hear any conversations either at the this level, my level, and or the state level about merging districts and or merging district offices and having superintendents and district offices serve multiple districts. So that has not been anything I have heard.
I have a couple questions. I love Kennett School. I am a graduate of Kennett, as our son is. I don't think a lot of people realize how many courses are offered in the high school. If you ever look at the course selection, which used to be a booklet, now it's online, it is unbelievable. So I want to applaud Kennett for that. It's wonderful. Do you have any out-of-state students that pay tuition?
Not at this time, no. So tuition is an interesting concept in Pennsylvania, where I come from. It is not unusual for a student to choose to tuition into another district. However, there are a lot of hoops to jump through in Pennsylvania in order to make that happen. And it often brings with it greater expenses than the tuition reimburses you, because you can't be, as public schools, we cannot discriminate. So we have to take for that tuition price any student who comes to us. And sometimes they come with more needs, whether they know it when they show up or not. They end up at times having more needs than that $15,000 tuition can cover.
And then my other question is, we have a large Spanish community. Do you know the percentage of teachers that can communicate in Spanish?
Well, too low, first of all. And so it is about 4% at this point.
Okay, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Sandy. Any other questions or comments? Kimberly, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, a quick question on the food. Is the food that is provided for kids that is taken home on Fridays, is that completely paid through state funding? And is it delivered to you? Like, how does that process work?
Sure. If you ever want to volunteer, we are looking for a volunteer partner for that process. So it is delivered to us from the Chester Food Bank. It actually all goes to one building where we then take it and disperse it to the other buildings. And right now, our principals, our school counselors, and our admin assistants are putting it into bags and making sure it gets home. That is not sustainable for the district. We will do it until we find a solution, because that's what we do for kids. And that is really how that system works, is by people carrying that extra lift.
So the food comes from Chester County Food Bank?
Yes, it does.
And how many backpacks go home?
At the K to 5 level, and I apologize that I don't know the 6 to 12 level at this point, it is about 500. So again, 47.5% of our students are food insecure. And
State budget impasse is killing you.
we are very fortunate. The state budget impasse is not killing us. I will, again, I'm a Yankee. I'm from New England, so we talk pretty straight. Sometimes you don't want to hear what we have to say. We will make it right now until April. In April, which is much better than some of the Western school districts, in April, we will be desperate.
Again, thank you very much, Doctor. Appreciate it.
Please feel free to give me a call anytime. Give me a call anytime.
Next up are the consent items on the agenda from Monday evening's meeting.
Councilman
Please.
could we take the fee schedule off the consent agenda? I had a discussion item on that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
With that, accepting for the fee schedule, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda items?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you very much, Kathleen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes. Next item is the fee schedule. We'll we have to act on that if we want to put that in place for this year.
So Dan Embry came after the meeting on Monday and suggested that we consider increasing the escrow fee for tree removal. It's currently at $350, which is less than it costs to replace a tree. And so if we increased it, I would propose $500. That would mean that if someone doesn't replace the tree, then the borough has $500 to replace the tree, which is probably still under the real replacement cost.
Rachel, can you talk to this as part of the committee?
I can tell you that it's very difficult to get $350 from people at this point. It costs sometimes $4,000 to have someone get a tree removed from in front of their home. And they expect us to pay for that usually because they don't understand the law. So when I tell them that it can cost that much money, and then I tell them that I have to ask them for an escrow check for replanting a tree that I give them back in a year, they get very upset. And I do understand that. I have been in a position where I have waived a 350 fee and it has not gone well. I can understand why you would want to increase that amount. But I don't know if it would go over very well. I think people are really having a hard time.
So you've waived it. What do you mean it didn't go well? They didn't replace the tree?
They haven't yet, but they will.
Okay.
They will. It's just a question of keeping up with people. It's sort of an intense situation when
Sure.
someone removes a tree and they don't have a lot of money.
Lexi, did you want to address this?
I would have to agree with, in line with what Rachel said, just because we will be enforcing the sidewalks, which people may or may not have to remove trees for, requesting more money adds to that burden. I don't know if we could do some kind of penalty instead if the tree's not replanted in a certain time, or add some kind of language in there where it's $350, or you may be charged additional if the borough if it costs more than $350, something along those lines, but still making it so they only have to put up a certain portion, like a smaller portion up front.
Ellie, did you have something to follow up?
I'm just mulling that over.
The concept of getting some sort of a penalty if it's not replaced. There's a lot of street trees that are missing right now, and really it's starting to affect the look of some of the main streets in town. I'd certainly love to get them replaced as easily as we can. With that, before we get any audience comment, is there a motion you'd like to put forth, Ellie?
I would like to move to increase the escrow fee to 500.
And all the other fees as they are?
Mhm.
Thank you. Is there a second? That motion doesn't fly. Is there another motion? I'll make a motion to approve the fee schedule as presented this evening. Is there a second?
Second.
Council, mayor discussion.
I just would add that the tree ordinance is weird, right? It's enabled by a Pennsylvania law that was passed in 1900. I don't like it when we have rules that are kind of like not enforced, right? By keeping the escrow amount low, we're essentially making it easy to not follow the guideline, as to your point that the trees aren't there. So I would like to consider removing that law if we're going to not enforce it.
Let's come back to
That's just a
that.
comment.
Let's come back to that in a second. Any other council, mayor comment? Any public comment? Please.
Charlotte Watson, 523 Magnolia Street in Kennett Square. I don't know what you're talking about. What trees? Whose trees?
So the borough has an ordinance, correct me if I'm wrong here, Lexi, that says that if you want to remove a tree that's in the curb lawn, the space between that's close to the street, then you have to get a permit for that. And as part of that, there's a $350 escrow. So you have to put aside, give to the borough $350. We hold it until the tree is replanted because you're required by the ordinance to replant the tree. And so I'm proposing that 350 doesn't cover the cost of replanting the tree. So if the resident decides not to do that, we don't really have enough money to plant the tree.
Well, I think it's a draw. They don't have enough money, you don't have enough money.
And then
So
we
what-
end up with no tree there.
Well, don't you think that's fair? Because I'm going to tell you, to just have my trees
I
trimmed.
thoroughly agree. That's why I just
Yeah.
proposed that we should get rid of that ordinance if we're not going to
Because
enforce it.
I'd never heard of that ordinance. This is new.
It's been on the books for
I'm
like
saying-
100
I'm saying
years.
I never heard us to enforce it because you know why? The two trees in my yard, and that's my yard, doesn't apply to this. They came from the shade tree for free. So whatever happened to that? We had a shade tree committee. So what you're looking at is antiquated and probably never has been way past not been used because we were given trees. And the two in my yard, I still have, and they came from shade tree. So I don't know how that ever came into fruition. It was before your time, Rachel.
And
And I don't understand because that's unfair to the homeowner if it's a homeowner. I could see if you want the business district to have some uniformity, but I can't even see charging them if they're the people that have to take it away. That's my statement. You can do what you want, you do. I'm just making my statement that they should not be charged. You already have trash, water, sewer, and taxes. And to even consider that, take the time is inconsiderate of the residents.
Thank you. Carrie?
This was Carrie Freeman, 801 South Washington Street up in Stenning Hills. This is the one thing that makes me ballistic about living in the borough with the shade trees. I have had in the past, and we're talking 10 years ago, a running battle because when I first bought my property back in the early 80s, I did get some free shade trees from the county or wherever to put in my strip. I planted a tree under a power line because I never looked up and thought, what's this going to look like in 40 years? Then Pico would come by every year and take the whole tree off. So it was standing here like this with nothing above. It is incredibly costly to remove trees for the resident, and it is costly to replace. I loaded my property with trees, which are not in the regulation because it's on the interior. But in a lot of Stenning Hills, whatever they call the beauty strip, on my main street, South Washington, we don't have any trees in those beauty strips. So to take down a tree on a side street and then have to find a new location, because I said, well, you can't replace, the reason I took it down is because it's getting lopped off by Pico every year. To me, it was just incredibly frustrating. It's like, God, this is why I don't want to live in a borough. You know, 2 streets up and over, and I wouldn't have to worry about this. So whatever break you can give the residents on trees, and a lot of our trees have to come down because they're in bad shape. And whatever break you can give them on sidewalks, which is just thousands. I spent thousands of dollars this year because one of those trees in the beauty strip, which is now 45 years old, had blown up my sidewalk. So I did a huge curving sidewalk around it to save the tree. It was thousands. And I thought all of Stenning Hills needs to be redone sidewalk wise. So I'm more interested in trying to get low interest loans to the residents to fix those sidewalks, which are a walking hazard, and stop beating them up on this tree situation.
Certainly hear your frustrations. Thank you. I don't see any other comments. We have a motion and a second. Yeah,
So is the shade tree rules ordinance, I'm not, is it an ordinance and is it the borough ordinance or is it a state ordinance?
It's a borough ordinance enabled by a state law,
State law.
there's certain requirements.
certain requirement
Okay.
for how, what we're allowed to,
So
what
would
rules
we
we're allowed to put in
need
place.
To,
Yeah, we could not have a shade tree ordinance. We could repeal the shade tree ordinance.
even though it's a state.
Even though it's in the borough code?
Oh, yeah, ask the attorney.
So I'm going to table the shade tree discussion for right now. We've got a motion and a second on the fee schedule as is. Unless there's any other council mayor discussion, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Um, so leave it as 350?
Right now, yes.
All right,
Fine with that.
yes.
So that's unanimous unless I miss someone. Thank you. Secondary to that, Kyle, you hear the frustration from some of our residents, some of our council. We've gone to a couple of shade tree commission meetings with exactly these issues. I mean, on top of that, it's the owner's responsibility right now to replace the shade trees, but it's the borough's responsibility to trim the shade trees. So it's a crazy set of rules that we have to live by. Well, obviously, we don't have to live by. So Kyle, could we ask you through whatever means and staff to come back to the council with your recommendations on what we should be doing, including public comments and any council comments as well, please?
Definitely. We have a few things already in the hopper, so we'll be able to put together a real plan for the next one.
Terrific. And if we could action those in the minutes, please, Rachel?
That include funding some tree trimmings?
It
Stuff that we've
does.
had complaints about in the last year?
That's what, it's in the current budget.
Next item on the agenda.
Is that just the, street?
It is the resident's responsibility to take care of that. But it's gray. Let me give a real
Okay,
memo answer.
I may have misspoke, but let's get the real answer.
Much is budgeted towards
I
shade tree?
forget off the top of my.
We put something in this year, Nick. It wasn't a ton, but at least to get 5,000.
5,000.
Next item on the agenda is item 5A, consider the LSA grant application resolution for the fire company. Kyle?
Yeah, so there's a good amount of background here, so just bear with me. This is a $646,000 LSA, which is a state local share account grant request. This was the same grant request that we put in this time last year. The numbers are different just because they've gone up. It's the same scope. It's for defibrillators and AEDs. If you remember, this was part of our discussions in our contract negotiations last year on the 2-year contract. Every state grant has its pros and cons. They're all a little bit different. The pros on the LSA are that the scope is very wide. So last year we talked about getting shelves for a grocery store, and we were able to pivot to AEDs for a fire department. So it's a very wide ranging scope. The downside is that everyone in the state knows that, so they get thousands of requests. What's also unique about this is that they typically have about a 10 or 11 month turnaround period from when you put in your request to when you get the decision. So there's always this period from September to November where you find out what you got, and then you have to quickly make a decision on whether you're going to resubmit or do something different. This grant has been great for the borough going back many years. The chief has gotten a lot of funding for the police department through this program. So we have had success, even though we've had a lot of competition. The difficulty of this year is that because of the state budget impasse, their decision-making has been pushed back several times now to either late November or later from September. So this request, and this is happening to every municipality in the state, we're requesting the same thing, even though we may find out, you know, in a couple weeks that we got the grant and don't need to have this application in. So it's going to be a lot of wasted effort by a lot of municipalities, but that's the only way that we can essentially work through this. So it's a long way of saying it's a request to go forward with this grant to fund fire equipment. $646,000.
$35.41. Council, mayor discussion? First off, is there a motion to support the LSA grant on behalf of the Longwood Fire Company in the amount of $646,035.41? Thank you. Julie, is there a second? Thank you, Sam. Council, mayor discussion.
So we're only obligated to give 80% of this grant?
So what we negotiated last year was that 80% of any grant that we get is credited towards our capital contributions to the commission. Part of that was a goodwill gesture. Part of it was also to encourage the other municipalities to support us in this effort when we go for these grants. Because logically, if everyone can get 100%, everyone will go for this great grant opportunity and crowd each other out. So in some ways, this seems to have worked. We got the Kennet Township manager has called in to the local representatives to support this. Either Pecopson has made a call in to their representative because the districts are a little different. So we've managed to get multiple municipalities to make calls on our behalf because of that. With the extra 20% is spread amongst the other commission members. So they get some benefit out of us being successful.
So the borough contribution, if it's awarded, is zero.
That's right.
But we get roughly $500,000 in credit on behalf of our contribution to the Longwood Fire Company and conversely the commission.
That's right.
For that reason, to me, it's a huge hunk of the borough's contribution to capital that we do have to contribute that we benefit by without having to take it out of our pocket or out of our tax money.
Can I just ask clarify, is that for the capital fund and not the operating fund? Or I want to be clear on that.
Yeah, I'm quite confident it's a capital fund. There's also the caveat that
What's our contribution for the capital fund for this contract?
so we don't have any commitment if we don't get the grant. If we do get the grant, if I remember right, it goes to 12%. So 3% is that it's covered by this, and it would also cover a reduction from a couple of years ago that was in our last contract, and then it's also applied to future capital for us.
The capital fund request is separate than our contractual obligation on the operating fund.
That's right.
Mhm.
Yep.
Make sure I got it.
Yeah.
And isn't grants hard to get for things like this? So it's a good opportunity.
Yes, that's a good point. So there are not, one of the reasons that we offered this is that there are limited opportunities for fire departments to get grants. Municipalities have some more opportunities, with the LSA being the obvious one. The difficulty is that they get thousands of requests through the LSA program because it's just so wide ranging.
Is the budget impasse slowing down or stopping the LSA grant approval process?
That's what we've been told, that's why that's delaying this, which to sort of add to that, we have a different state grant that it comes after this process by the same committee that's also delayed. So we're backed up on well over $1 million worth of requests now 2 months later.
Thank you.
Sure. Right. And if we get the other one, we'll pull this one back.
Any public comment? We've got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That is the extent of our agenda. Now we're open to the most favorite part of our show, public comment. Carrie, please, the other Carrie.
Gary Dickman, 620 Magnolia Court. Two quick issues. My heart was pained after Monday's meeting when there was talk about whether or not this community should be supporting the library and whether any action should be taken over the .2 mills on it. We spend so much time talking about community and the Kennett community, and that library is our community hub. It hosted the mayoral debate. Before I came here, the senior center was hosting an estate planning. Are there kids running around? Sure, on the second floor. It's a kids' library up there. It would cost money. We would take on debt to attempt to overturn a referendum. And I just think it would be a horrible decision for this borough not to support that library. The second quick piece I wanted to mention, the comprehensive plan membership. The meeting was tense on Monday. I didn't feel like standing up and opposing anything that was being done, but the council chose 3 people to be on that without first opening the process up to getting volunteers from the community who had interest in being on it. I would like a more open process as new seats come available going through that comprehensive plan. It would be nice if the borough put something out where people could have tossed their hat into it, sent in a resume to say why they felt they had something to offer, rather than hearing the same old names constantly doing everything. I think it would benefit the community if we moved beyond the old guard and encouraged more participation.
Thank you for your comments. Gary, I agree with you wholeheartedly on the library issue and extremely well said. Lexi or Kyle, I think that second question deserves a comment, please.
Sure. There will be significant input from the community for the comp plan. Comp plans are built around community input. So I don't know if I don't think I added at the last meeting that there will be council discussions, there will be planning commission discussions, there will be this group that works on it on a weekly basis, but there's another layer in between those, which is our stakeholder interviews, which is a fancy way of saying we're going to want to talk to the school district, right? And we're going to want to talk to different HOAs, and we're going to want to talk to different churches. So those are a lot of those in between discussions, because again, this is all built on understanding what the community is looking for. So it's a long way of saying there will be a lot of that. It just didn't come up in that discussion, but it's a big chunk of it.
We're going to take in and digest what everyone said, which puts them at a different level than the people offering comments. So it just would have been nice, and I think the optics would have been better had the council reached out to the borough residents, said who might be interested, and then took the time to go through any applicant and selected people who you might not know, but who would have had something to offer.
Constructive comment taken. Thank you. Are there any other public comments? Troy? And Troy, you weren't here when we started the meeting. We just wanted to thank you very much for running and putting your name in the hat during this election. Thank you.
Thank you. One quick one. I talked to somebody from Sappy's office at the polls, and she said that the improvements for Baltimore Pike got pushed out to 2027. Is that accurate?
No. That's what I've heard for a couple of years now, is 2027.
Okay, I thought
Newark
it was
Road and Oval.
2026.
2027 is what's on the PennDOT website.
Okay.
That's what has been there for the last couple of years.
Okay.
So it may have been pushed out from what people perceived before, but I think it's been on the PennDOT website for 2027 for at least 3 or 4 years.
Okay, it was odd. She said it got pushed out. I'm like, okay, I didn't know it got pushed out. The other part around the budget, again, appreciate what Carrie's saying about the library. And again, the feedback I was getting as I was running was it was just over 50% in referendum that agreed to that. When we're talking about hard decisions in the budget, I did an analysis on the library compared to all the others that are contributing to it. The difference is, even though we do a 0.2 mil, our tax base has been going up. So our absolute contribution is higher than what the other ones are growing at. The state and I think the county are relatively flat. So all I'm suggesting is, do we have opportunities to make sure our residents, before we cut general services, which I saw that went down on the slide you guys had up. So we're doing emergency services go up, understand that. General services are coming down, but the increasing base that millage goes against has been going up. And like I said, before we start cutting people, before we start reducing services, and I did research a little bit more around the referendum, either council, my understanding, either council can suggest it to go to referendum, or you can do a petition. I think it's like 3 or 5% of the population at the time of 2023 could sign off. I'm just putting options out there because I heard it pretty strong from the people that voted for me that, yeah, if they have to choose between eating or paying millage on the library, and again, it was mostly seniors that were reaching out to me about it. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you. Any other public comment? No? Any council mayor comment?
Just a quick thing, I wanted to address what Mr. Thompson just brought up, because I had this same question and I addressed it earlier. There was not a reduction in the government services. It is a lower percentage, but it was because there were funds in that last year that covered fire and EMS, because fire and EMS, the millage for 2025 was capped at 3 mils. The state changed that cap from 3 mils to 10 mils. So the extra that was paid to the Fire and EMS Commission came out of the general fund millage in excess of the 2.85.
So it's a reclass?
It is. So it was a shift.
Is it 100% of that the reclass, or is it a part of that that's a reclass?
You could, Nick can answer, but I think the movement, because I saw the same thing. I'm like, wait a minute, how did we
That's what I got concerned. We cutting general services to everybody for a smaller subset that might be doing the library.
It was the movement of the funds that we pay to the, so we're paying the commission 900,000, which is the equivalent of almost, well, what's the mill? Almost 4 mils, right? 3.5 mils. Last year, we couldn't do that because we were capped at 3. So it came from the general fund. So that got shifted. That makes sense. Am I saying that right, Nick?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
saw the same thing.
Because I saw it and I was like, that's a horrible optic to be telling anybody. Just along that same thing, again, I just used ChatGPT. I was just out of time before I came. But again, just make sure people are aware. When I look at Kennett Square, Kennett Township, East Marlboro, New Garden, Pennsbury, and Pecopson, we have by far the highest millage. And now we're increasing it even more. So again, when we're looking for public comment, just make sure they understand. And part of the challenge we have is when we do stuff, the library gets its money up front. Where we do development, we get the income lag. So it's timing stuff and so forth. And I'm not saying don't support the library at all, but is there somewhere lesser because our taxable base has been going up? So it doesn't mean they're going to absolutely lose dollars. It's just they're gaining more dollars from us than all the other comparable funding sources.
Ellie?
You're saying, I want to clarify, Troy, you're saying that our contribution to the library is more or our millage rate is more? Our library millage rate?
It's the same as Kennett Township. Our base year over year, we're on an incline
Right.
where, again, I'm just talking
But
off the top of my.
the per dollar, per assessed value,
Yes.
Kennett Township is the same as ours.
So it's a rate volume type thing. The rates are
Right, okay.
the same.
Thank
but
you
the
for
volumes-
clarifying. Yep.
But the state and the county has kind of flat. So we're covering a bigger part of the budget. So if we're going to look at efficiencies here, can we get the library made to look at similar type efficiencies before we start cutting our people?
Their base is a lot higher than ours, no?
They're paying dollar for dollar more,
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
but it's the same thing we have with the EMS.
right, right.
Right, because it's the exact same problem, is that because our assessed value is lower, our residents pay a higher dollar proportionately because our assessed value is lower. And that's been kind of one of the things that's come up with fire and EMS over and over, is that even though our dollars are less, the impact per resident is higher because our assessed value is lower. So to get to the 900, it costs our residents to contribute $900,000 more than it costs a Kennett Township resident to contribute $900,000 more, because our assessed value is lower. I totally get it, because it's exactly what we have with fire and EMS.
Any other council?
I have a couple of budget questions that I'd like to ask. And one was going through the municipal vehicles and equipment went from 18,000 a year to 4,000 a year. Is that
What page, could you pull up the page, Ron?
I don't have that part in front of me.
Okay,
I just wrote down
okay.
Municipal. Could you say that again? I'm
the
sorry.
fuel costs for municipal vehicles and equipment. From 18 to.
Fuel costs.
Were we expecting it to cost less?
We, yeah, that was cut, Kyle. I'm not sure.
I mean, I don't know what page or what we're talking about, but I can get an answer for the next council meeting.
And then, so we said that across the board, this staff is getting a 3% cost of living increase.
That's right.
But what we didn't talk about during that, in your like bulleted points that you gave us, we were talking about competitive salaries and comprehensive benefits, but what didn't come through personnel committee was adding tuition assistance, student loan repayment for qualifying employees. So how do we balance the cost of that? Like,
Yeah.
that hasn't come through any of our committees, so.
We did talk about it briefly, but this is a way for us to help to keep some of the really strong employees that we have. And it's something of a counterweight to the larger pay that's given for experience. This puts value on education.
And I understand that, but we haven't had a chance to really talk it through when we're giving repayment of student loans. I don't think that's been really thought through, and budget-wise, how would that affect our budget? Because we haven't seen those numbers.
So it would be the flat 20,000.
Many people are going to get asked for that have many employees that might have student loans that are now going to ask for reimbursement.
It would be spread among, so it'd be a fixed pot that's then spread amongst those that qualify for it.
20,000 spread among everybody, or?
Right, no, total. So it'd be spread across however many people qualify for.
It sounds like these need to be discussed at personnel, first staff development meeting, as well, Nick, at the finance committee meeting.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, David. Were there others?
At the moment.
Okay. Unless there's any other comments, I'd love to recognize Amy Regal. We said hello to Juan earlier. Amy's our new council person, should be up here in January. Congratulations, Amy. Absolutely. And Charla, you weren't here when we started, but also thank you for running. You certainly had an ambitious write-in campaign. With that, meeting's over. Would love to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving coming up real soon, or in a couple of weeks' time. Our next meeting and only meeting in December, at least right now, is December 8th. See you then. Thank you very much. Thank you, Kimberly.